Nathan, do the thing, Nathan.
Namo Fundamental Teacher Sakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teachers Sakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teachers Sakyamuni Buddha.
Thank you. Good one.
Do you want me to read this too?
Oh, yeah, we do.
The unsurpassed, deep, profound, subtle, wonderful Dharma in 100,000 million eons is difficult to encounter. Now that I've come to receive and hold it within my sight and hearing, I vow to fathom the thus come one's true and actual meaning.
Okay, that's good. That's really good. Thank you. Okay, today we will learn new stuff. I would share you how to deal with depression. Okay, and I will use both Western psychology and the Buddhist psychology. You will see how we deal with it. I think that will be the best. Okay, it's a little bit late. Can you know this? Okay.
Be so happy, we'll take the open road. Can't without a tent, stop without a phone. Host a movie night, get your zen on. Nice to feel at home, everywhere you go. We've all experienced sadness, but usually our sadness does fade over time and gets better. But what happens when the sadness lingers? Depression goes beyond normal sadness and can become an all-encompassing disorder. There are different types of depression, but the most common is known as major depressive disorder. According to the DSM-V, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, to have major depressive disorder, you must meet 5 of the possible criteria outlined in the DSM-V, and at least one of the symptoms must be depressive episodes. But what other signs are there of depression? How do you spot if your friend, or even you, are suffering from this disorder? Watch on to find out 7 important signs of depression. 1. Neglecting friends and hobbies. Another frustrating symptom of depression is something known as anhedonia. This means the loss of pleasure from activities which would usually be fun. This leads to neglecting activities and people, as they no longer give the person with depression any sense of pleasure or fun. According to Psychology Today writer Faith Briney, it is one of the most common symptoms of depression. So if your friend no longer seems interested in their hobbies like Pokemon Go, playing guitar, or dancing, it may be a good time to check in with them. 2. Changes in sleep pattern. Our sleep pattern is incredibly important for our mental health. Often, changes to our sleep pattern are one of the signs that we're suffering mentally. This is particularly an issue as an irregular sleep pattern can make depression worse. Depression can cause insomnia, too little sleep, or hypersomnia, sleeping too much. These changes in sleep pattern also tend to result in a decrease in overall energy. This symptom is very common. Nutt, Wilson, and Patterson found that 75% of depressed patients reported insomnia and 40% reported hypersomnia. So if you notice a change to your sleep pattern, it might be a sign you're depressed. 3. Change in appetite. Another thing that depression can influence is our appetites. Some people with depression find their appetite is much lower, feeling unable to eat. Conversely, some people with depression have an increased appetite and may turn to food to comfort eat. Simmons et al. Found that certain brain areas were involved in whether someone with depression lost or increased their appetite. So, if you notice your friend's appetite seems to have changed drastically, that might be a sign they are suffering from depression. 4. Low self-esteem. Self-esteem is something that is often majorly affected by depression. Depression can make you only see the negative things about yourself and downplay your achievements. This is a serious symptom of depression, as it can lead to people feeling worthless. It's even been shown in studies that low self-esteem as an adolescent is a risk factor for depression as an adult. If you feel like there's nothing positive about you, or you have friends who always seem to put themselves down, it could be due to depression. 5. Decrease in hygiene. One way the lack of energy from depression can manifest is a decrease in someone's hygiene. Often those with depression struggle to shower, clean their teeth, or other self-grooming habits we take for granted. This is due to their fatigue and lack of motivation to complete tasks. So if your friend is looking less clean and groomed, it might be due to a depressive episode. 6. Irritability. Do you ever find that everyone and everything is getting on your nerves? Do you feel like you're tense and pent up? Irritability is one of the symptoms of depression. When you feel so negative about everything, it can make even little things feel incredibly annoying. Bisharat et al. Also suggests depression causes dysfunction in mood regulation, meaning anger is more likely to be displayed. So if you notice you or a friend have a shorter fuse than usual, it might be worth looking into why that is. 7. Flat emotions. There is a misconception that depression is all about feeling sad all the time. This, however, isn't the case. One other symptom of depression is known as flat mood. This is where a person's mood is dull. Often people say they feel numb or like they can't feel anything at all. They don't feel sad, but they also can't feel happy either. If this feeling is something you've experienced, you might want to seek help as you may be suffering from depression. If you feel like you strongly relate to the signs in this video, you should seek professional help. A doctor will talk to you about your symptoms and may have you complete a self-report questionnaire to help diagnose you. Once your doctor suspects you have depression, they will discuss treatment options such as medication and therapy with you. We hope you found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to like and share. Follow our channel for more psychological content.
Big Chat, and today we're at
Good. All right. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint. So, why do we need to learning this to recognize the sign of the depression? It's important. Why it's so important to recognize those things? Tammy, can you say it to them?
I guess so that we can not only see it in ourselves, but in others too. So we can, if we see these symptoms within ourselves, try to find ways to pull ourselves out of it. Or if we see it within our friends, to help them kind of get out of this mode.
Yeah, before they can get worse, right? We don't want them to get worse. That is the thing we need to make sure that they. Okay, so all right. Okay, let's go ahead and you go ahead and read this one. So I will summarize this thing so to make sure. You there?
Where do I start? The first paragraph?
Yeah, this one right here. Neglect.
Okay. Neglecting friends and hobbies. Another symptom of depression is something known as anhedonia. This means the loss of pleasure from activities which usually be fun. This leads to neglecting activities and people as they no longer give the person with depression any sense of pleasure or fun. This is the most common symptoms of depression.
Okay, do you understand what you mean?
Kinda.
Okay. So basically, let's say that when we are, let's say ourselves or some our friend, our friend or ourselves, before we enjoy to play hobby, right? We enjoy with our hobby. We enjoy to have fun. Suddenly, we do not we don't want to have any kind of pleasure. So there is no, we are lack of sense of pleasure or fun. This is due to the depression, and this is very common. Um, this is just a sign, and later on, I will show you the other video. They tell you what are the factor that cause the depression, and we will learn more into it. But right now, we just recognize the sign. That should be good enough. So when we see the ourselves or other people have our friend have similar to the symptom, we might need to pay more attention to them. So to help them to get out of that situation, we can. What can we do in this case? What can we do to offer them? Any idea? Tell me. What do you think? What if we see the person in this situation? What should we do?
Maybe try to spend more time with them, check up on them, call them, text them, make sure you're keeping communication with them.
That's a good one, because they might need to have more attention. They might need to have a companion to talk with. So that's one of the things. Okay, number 2, Nathan. Nathan, are you there, Nathan?
Hold on, I'm helping my grandma. What were you saying?
Read number 2.
Changes in sleep patterns. This is one of the signs suffering mentality. This is particularly an issue as an irregular sleep pattern can make depression worse. Depression can cause insomnia too, little sleep or hypersomnia, sleeping too much. These changes in sleep pattern also tend to result in a decrease in overall energy. This symptom is very common. Nutt, Wilson, and Patterson found that 75% of depression patients reported insomnia and 40% reported hypersomnia.
Good, that's good. So you see that when the people suddenly, they rapidly change in the pattern of sleeping, either little sleep or oversleep, that means they really have problem. They really have problem. But the more they into this, the more depression can be very worse. And this could be remember, when we have the depression, it will affect our health a lot. And later on in the other video, we will learn more into that and what kind of risk factor that we will have. Okay, so when we have someone like this or ourselves like this, we have to pay attention to it. And this is just like we need to listen to our own body, right? This is a good way to. So we have to. Usually, for this situation here, maybe people think too much, and that means they cannot sleep. And later on, when you are when I share you the other video, you will learn more into this one. Yeah. Aaron,
Yeah, Ty.
Number 3.
The change in appetite, feel unable to eat, and conversely, some people with depression have an increase in appetite and may turn to food to comfort eat.
Do you understand what it means?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me what you understand.
So like when a person's depressed, one, they either like they're not like they don't want to eat or anything because they're like so sad to the point where like they don't want to eat anything, or two, they eat to make themselves feel better.
Do you think that they eat to make themselves better?
Yeah, because it makes them feel better.
No, but this is the this is the way they step into the depression. So
Sorry.
this is the way that they will step into the depression. Either you eat more, I mean, they don't feel like to eat it, or they eat more, they eat a lot. That means they still have the depression. This is what we call. This is the sign of the depression. So when you see someone changing in the appetite, that means either no eating or they eat too much. Because when we eat too much, what happened? We could have a problem with our health, right? We cause a lot of problem with our health related. So we have to be very careful. Eating too much is not a good thing. We have to know where to stop, and that is the best to make sure that. And we have to keep the eating in. So rapidly we change the way we eating. That is not a good thing. Okay, so we have to be very careful of those things. Um, because when the people eat too much and they are addicted to it, and that will be a big problem. Why? You read number 4.
Lower self-esteem, lack of confidence is something that is often majorly affected by depression. You only see negative things about yourself and downplay your achievements. This is a serious symptom of depression as it can lead to people feeling worthless.
Well, it is easy to understand. Why?
Yes.
Okay. So when the people low self-esteem, right? That means they don't have any confidence. That means why they in this situation? Why do you know why they in this situation?
I think a lot of times it could be from other people looking down on them or saying like they could do better, or they maybe if it's in school and they get bad grades, they lose their confidence and then doing their work or their next test or things like that. But I think a lot of times it could be like yourself doubting what you can do and doubting your ability to do better.
Overconfident, that's good or bad?
That's bad as well.
Okay, that's really bad too. So usually the people in the in the low self-esteem is basically whatever they do in life, they always fail. So it looks like they never have anything is successful in whatever they do, right? So that's why they lose the confidence in themselves, and this is tough, and it's not easy to overcome this. And when they do this thing, they have no motivation in their life. And this because they think that they are worthless, right? They are worthless. That's why they have no motivation to do anything. And this is very critical. This is very critical thing. We have to be very careful. If when we deal with these people, what should we do with them then? Tell me, what do you think? How do we help this person?
So with the low self-esteem, then you would want to help like build up their confidence. You would tell them all the great things, how, the good qualities that are within them, where if they're only thinking of negative things and how bad they are, then you can just kind of go through and remind them of all the good things they've done and what they're capable of.
Never talk about the negative thing about them. Never. Because they already now, right? And if we don't want to put them down too, we only talk about good thing about themselves. Maybe we try to find out whatever they have done in the past, even the small thing, right? If they have done small thing, but they have be able to do it good, we always praising them. We always encourage them. And also we whenever let's say that we can work with them to do when we try to help them, we give them the small task that we need to know that they can be able to complete that, and walk them step by step to build their skill, to build their confidence. That will require a lot of time. It's not easy for this kind of person. It's not easy at all, and we have to spend a lot of time with them to train them, to teach them certain things until they be able to master it. And when they be able to master it, let's say that will they be able to get one thing done in a good way, and that's how they be able to build the confidence little by little. That require a lot of patience from us when we deal with these people. And this is represent for, in Buddhism, we call the love and kindness and compassion. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see. Vincent.
Decrease in hygiene. Often those with depression struggle to shower, to clean their teeth, or other self-grooming habits we take for granted. This is due to their fatigue and lack of motivation to complete tasks.
Okay. We will. This is also relate to the technology as well. Technology also be a big part of this thing. What do you think, Tammy? Do you think technology also be a part of this thing?
Well, sure, because when you say technology and this topic, it makes me think of like just zoning out on it. So like playing video games or being on Facebook or Twitter or whatever else you have that you use, and that's just playing on the internet or playing on the computer rather than taking care of yourself and living life.
Yeah, when we addict to something, that also a part of the depression. Okay, because that kind of addiction, it will it will slow down everything that we sometimes we cannot even take care of ourselves, right? We learn that thing later on. Okay. Let's see. Ivan, number 6.
Irritability.
Okay, Ivan from California.
Irritability. When you feel so negative about everything, it can make even little things feel incredibly annoying. Depression causes dysfunction in mood regulation, and meaning anger is more. Irritability likely to be displayed.
Okay, Ivan, do you know what can cause this one? Do you know what can cause this one?
Depression.
No. What can cause her to be angry? Easily get angry.
Games.
Yeah, that's correct, right? Don't you think? Ivan, don't you think that?
Yeah.
When we play a game, right, we stuck and we focus on the game too much, we hook into the game too much. What happens if our parents call us to stop, right, and help them to do the hard work? What will we respond, Ivan? What do you think?
No.
No, then we say 5 more. Give me 5 more minutes, and you keep repeat that many times, right?
Yeah.
5 minutes can turn into half an hour or even more. And, to the point that we get angry, right? And you know what? When we get angry, and that's not good either. So that's why technology is also the risk. That is one of the biggest risk factor for the depression. Okay, that is we have to be very careful. We have to be very wise. Otherwise, we put ourselves into trouble later on. We cannot be able to get out. Okay, Tina. Number 7, go.
Emotions. There is a misconception that depression is all about sad and feeling sad all the time. This, however, is not the case. One other symptom of depression is known as flat mood. This is where a person's mood is dull. Often people say they feel numb or like they cannot feel anything at all. They cannot feel sad, but they cannot feel happy either.
Okay, so sometimes we think that only the people who feel sad is the depression, but this is not the case. So the people who do not neither sad or no happy, but they are in we call numb, right? Numb, or we call flat mood. That means if he or she in that situation for a while, and that will become depression. Remember, this happened to be consistently for some time, then we consider that is the depression. It's not only one and we say depression. No, that is not right. So we have to be very careful. This kind of person have no motivation, right? So we have to be very careful. Now, okay, before we go through here, I think it's a good idea to let you guys see the video, and this is a very good video. Pay attention to it and how to recover from the depression.
IXL is helping 10 million students succeed in math and language arts.
Right. Right now, I show you the depression in the Western psychology view. And later, when we understand the depression, and we will see how the Western psychology dealing with the depression, and later on, I will integrate the Buddhist psychology into this, how to manage the depression. Okay, so that is the goal that we're going to learn. Okay. And we need to pay attention to this. So this is important.
This program, this idea of his of bringing psychology to the public, to me is the most important.
Can you see the video, everyone?
Yes.
Thank you.
Important thing that we as psychologists can do. The volume of information is so great, and the quality of information has improved so markedly over time that there's a lot to share. And we have a relatively short time this evening, but I hope to give you a lot of good perspective about things that matter the most in learning to manage depression. So let me say I will be speaking for roughly 45 minutes or so, and then I will open it up to questions. Let me start with a story and get you thinking about this topic. When I was a young psychologist back in 1829, my first job was working in a psychiatric facility, and I was the admissions person. It was my job to admit new patients to the unit. Now, this is a locked facility. People aren't getting locked up because they're doing well. They're not really doing very well at all. And so my job was to interview them, find out why they were there, what was going on in their lives, what the expectation was for their hospitalization, what medications they were on, what the treatment plan was, all those kinds of things. Now, I'm young, I'm inexperienced, and for me to have the opportunity to interview many hundreds of people in a relatively short period of time turned out to be pivotal in all the things I'm going to talk to you about tonight. I would interview people who had been through the worst experiences that you can imagine. People who had been raped tortured, mutilated, people who had fled their homelands literally with the bullets whizzing past their head, people who lost their entire family in one fell swoop in a plane crash or a car crash, people who had suffered the worst adversities you could possibly imagine. And when I would interview these people, it was easy to appreciate why they were broken, why they were so despairing, why they had given up on life. That was, of course, an interesting lesson, to say the least. The compassion, the empathy was very easy. But what fascinated me clinically, that has every bit of relevance to what we're going to talk about tonight, is when I interviewed people who had been through these horrific experiences, people who probably should have been depressed, but they weren't. And I wanted to know, why not? What is it about the way that these people are coping that somehow serves to insulate them against depression? So it gave rise to the 4 research questions that have guided my career now for more than 40 years. Think about your answers to these questions, because we're going to talk about them. The first question was, are there skills that people have that serve to insulate them? Very interesting. When you ask people directly, gee, anybody who had been through your circumstances would be depressed, you're not, why not? And people would give me these very insightful answers like, I don't know. Or they would say, well, I guess it's just luck of the draw, or I guess it's good genetics. But they couldn't really give me any insight into that. They're just living it. They're just being who they are, doing what they're doing. So as a young researcher, interviewing people and asking a million questions, slight exaggeration, and you find out that they like murder mysteries, and they like taking walks in the park, and they like playing with their kids and grandkids, and they like ice cream, and they like all kinds of things. And there I am trying to figure out, so what is it? Well, we've answered that question now. It's the ice cream. If only it were that simple. So starting to identify what patterns are present in the way this person thinks about things, in the way they define problems, in the way that they define their relationships, what are they doing in there? And what emerged from that were, with great clarity, were certain patterns of self-organization. Keep that phrase in mind, patterns of self-organization. So then the question became, okay, if I think I have a handle on what's going on with these folks, what we can learn from them, it leads to the second question. Can we say that these skills that these people have are in fact learnable? Are they teachable? Isn't this what the purpose of therapy is to help people acquire these skills that are not intuitive for them, that are intuitive for these other people? Then the third question became the salient research question. Can we prove scientifically, empirically, that when people are taught these particular skills, that it makes a difference? That it reduces their level of depression, reduces the frequency of depression, reduces their vulnerability to relapses, reduces the impact on the people around them. This is one of the things about depression. It doesn't just affect the individual sufferer. One of my recent books is called Depression is Contagious, and not in a viral sense, not in a bacterial sense, but in a social sense. What is it about depression that is so easily transmitted to kids of depressed parents? If you're the child of a depressed parent, your likelihood of suffering depression is 3 to 6 times greater than if you're the child of a non-depressed parent. Just having a depressed parent is a massive risk factor, not a small one, a big one. So can we prove that by people acquiring and developing skills that it really makes a difference? And then the fourth question has to do with prevention. Now, bear in mind, I'm asking these questions more than 40 years ago when we didn't have good antidepressant medications. We had medications that weren't particularly effective and people didn't want to take them. They had annoying little side effects like death. And so all in the span of 40 years, all of those things have changed. We have better medications, we have far better psychotherapies, a far better insight into what depression is, who's vulnerable and under what conditions. But the idea at that time of even thinking about depression in terms of prevention was sheer fantasy. We didn't have good treatment, much less good opportunities for prevention. So I will summarize my response to all four of these questions. Yes, 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 and yes. What we have learned is that there are certain vulnerabilities, risk factors. A risk factor is anything that increases the likelihood of somebody suffering a particular disease or condition. And at the time that I started studying depression, we knew of exactly two risk factors, gender and family history. We now know that there are scores of risk factors, factors that increase vulnerability to depression. And I'm going to talk about some of the key ones this evening. Now, part of what came out of that initial study was the recognition that it's not just what happens to you. You know, for the people who say, well, the reason I'm depressed is because here's what happened to me when I was a kid, or the reason that I'm depressed is because I lost my job, or the reason I'm depressed is because this person broke up with me. That's only partially true at best. It's far less about what actually happens to you, and it's far more about how you interpret, how you give the significance to, what kind of meaning you attach to the events in your life. And part of what we've learned is that there's a phenomenon called attributional style, a pattern of how people reflexively, unconsciously interpret the significance of events. And this is something that is imperative to appreciate for all of us, because this is where some of the strongest risk factors reside, as I'll get into in just a little while. But let's backtrack to the most basic of questions. If we ask the question, what is depression? Well, depression is technically considered a mood disorder, but it's far more than that. Depression's tentacles reach into every part of a person's life. It affects not just your mood, it affects your physiology, your physical health, and how depression serves as a risk factor for many different conditions, most notably cardiovascular disease. In fact, there are cardiologists around the world who are recommending screening for depression as the first screen for cardiovascular disease, but others as well. It reaches into your ability to think and make decisions. And it's one of the things I'm going to talk about a little bit later is the quality of people's decisions and how their way of making decisions actually unintentionally reinforces depression. It affects job performance and your ability to function in the work that you do. It affects concentration, how many work-related accidents that damage people and damage people's lives are caused by inattention caused by depression. It affects relationships. It's hard to be around people who are depressed. It ends up damaging relationships, and of course, all that leads to is more isolation and more depression. So I can go on and on about all the different tentacles of depression, but you should get the idea that this isn't just a bad mood. There are a lot of things that are very persistent, very enduring about the patterns that give rise to depression in the first place that affect quality of life over the span of a lifetime. So then if we come to the question, what causes depression? Is depression caused by, now look at this list. If you were to research every one of these factors, you would find that there is abundant evidence for all of them and more. And if you look at this list, you'll notice that some of these factors are biological factors. Some of these factors are psychological factors. Some of these factors are social factors. And the more that we have learned about depression, the more that we learn how important the social side of the equation really is. That so many of the risk factors for depression, when I talk about depressed parenting and why kids of depressed parents are at so much higher a risk, it isn't through genetics, it's through modeling. As a parent, you can't teach kids what you don't know. And so it becomes an interesting field of research. What is the relationship between family structure, family coping styles, family atmosphere, and depression? And to leave it in general for the moment, there are some very significant factors that operate in that arena. It's why I wrote the book, Depression is Contagious, because these factors now are being recognized across a variety of fields. So to summarize that point, how important it is to appreciate and have a multidimensional viewpoint. Yes, biology matters, but surprisingly, not as much as you would think. That when we look at what's termed genetic variance, how much do genes play a role in depression? Is there a depression gene? No. Are there genes that make people vulnerable to depression? Definitely. And so if we look at biochemistry, yes, it's a factor. If we look at disease processes, there are many diseases where depression is a predictable consequence. If we look at drugs, there are many drugs that have depression as a predictable side effect. Biology matters, but when we look at genetic variance, that figures between 0.3 and 0.4. That represents a mild, moderate, at best, genetic influence. So when we look at the power of the psychological factor, individual history, individual problem-solving styles, individual coping styles, these are the kinds of things that are in the domain of individual psychology. Another one that I mentioned just a moment ago, attributional style, the person's habitual or reflexive way of attaching meaning to life events. And the social side of the equation. As we've learned from studies of depression's prevalence, a field called epidemiology, this has been particularly revealing. I don't know if you saw the big announcement last year from the World Health Organization. Well, in 2004, the World Health Organization, which monitors health issues of all types around the world, including depression, but other things as well, cancer, AIDS, MS, you name it. In 2004, the World Health Organization declared depression the number 4 cause of human suffering and disability, behind cancer, heart disease, and traffic accidents. They predicted in 2004 that by the year 2020, depression would rise to be number 2. In fact, depression reached number 2 in late 2013. Last year, just around this time, depression was declared the number 1 cause of human suffering and disability. And the numbers are increasing. There is no demographic group where the numbers are going down. In every demographic group, the numbers are going up. When we look at the epidemiology, it's the 25 to 44-year-olds who represent the largest group of depression sufferers. But the fastest growing group is their children. And this is one of the things that I am deeply concerned about. That when you see a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old who's already suffering depression, shows the signs, has the symptoms, is dealing with it, that's a basis for concern. What's an even stronger basis for concern is what happens 10 years from now when this depressed adolescent becomes a parent. We now have 3-generation studies that show remarkably clearly that from one generation to the next, depression increases in prevalence, depression increases in severity. I'm worried especially about the youngest among us, who are at a very elevated risk right now for all kinds of reasons. One of the points about the social side of depression, why is depression increasing so dramatically? Think about your response to that. Well, the societal structure has changed radically over time. And when we look at things like the influence of technology, that smartphone that you're carrying around represents one of the strongest risk factors there is for young people today, who are, no other way to describe it, addicted to the technology. Survey after survey showing that if you ask somebody to stop checking their phone for 2 hours, they react really badly. It's so ingrained into their quality of life. And as a general principle, the more time you spend in front of a screen, whether it's a small one, whether it's a big one, the more likely you are to suffer depression. You've been hearing about what people are calling the epidemic of loneliness. Paradoxically, in this terribly overcrowded world, people are dying of loneliness. And the fact that people are as disconnected as they are plays a significant role. So when I talk about what causes depression, the best answer I can give you is many, many things. And that's precisely why each person's pathway into depression is different. It's why whatever pathway this person's going to find out of depression is going to have to be unique to them. Is there a best treatment for depression? Absolutely not. Is there a best approach? Absolutely not. The best approach is the one that works for you. And that's an important thing as a consumer, that as you approach the decision to seek help, to take advantage of the fact that there are experts who have been studying these things for a very long time and have learned a lot and know how to do treatment quite well, that your path is going to be different and unique. There is no standardized treatment. There's no standardized way of doing this. And so this is an important point. I'm talking now about your risk factors, yours, you as an individual. They're not the same as others. When I say each person has their own pathway in and is going to have to develop their own pathway out, your task is learning what your vulnerabilities are, learning what your risk factors are. What is very troublesome for one person isn't the least bit troublesome for someone else. What one person avoids with every ounce of energy they have, somebody else walks into openly and happily. Everybody's different. And so when we look at that point, which is really nothing to sneeze at, we really have to appreciate that it's that level of individual attention, learning about yourself, that becomes one of the most important things that you can do. So when we look at the fact that currently the most common form of treatment, the most popular form of treatment, is the antidepressant medication. Now, antidepressant medications really became popular in the late 1980s with the first release of Prozac, the first of the newer generation antidepressants. I'm not going to say a lot about antidepressants right now, just a couple of general comments. What I will say definitively is medications are too heavily relied upon. Medications are viewed as somehow going to be the answer. And I can tell you, the more that we understand the social aspect of depression, the more confidently I can say to you, there will never be a drug that cures depression any more than there will be a drug that cures racism or poverty. Looking at it through the lens of biology is an exceptionally limited perspective. Why I made a point of showing you the slide that shows you the biological factors, psychological factors, social factors. Now, it's not that I am against antidepressants. Part of writing for Encyclopedia Britannica is I can't just say it because it's my opinion. Where's the evidence for it? Antidepressants can do two things reasonably well. They can help you manage the vegetative symptoms, things like sleep disturbance, appetite disturbance, and they can raise the floor on depression. Now, that will be true for roughly half the people who take medications. If you take medication alone, it's something to reconsider. Medications have the highest rate of relapse of any form of treatment. So even if you happen to be a fan of medication, and believe me, there are people who say to me all the time, that medication saved my life, I believe them. There's no reason to disbelieve them. But the larger point I'm making is it's not enough. It's not enough. And here's why it's not enough. No amount of medication is going to help you develop skills in managing stress. None. No amount of medication is going to help you develop a better attributional or explanatory style, or help you build and maintain positive relationships with other people, or it's help you develop the kinds of cognitive skills that help you think critically about experience instead of just getting sucked in by your feelings. It's not going to help you develop problem-solving skills. It's not going to help you develop better decision-making strategies. It's not going to teach you how to build a support network with people. It's not going to help you come to terms with whatever crummy things have happened in your life. And it's certainly not going to help you build one of the most important things, one of the most important things in getting treatment is how to build a compelling future. You know, the past, whatever distresses, whatever traumas, whatever situations you've faced, I get that. I listen to those.
All right, let's stop right here. Amy, would you summarize, help them to summarize for me, please? Thank you.
So he's saying that there's all different kinds of things that lead to depression. And it's more more likely if one of your parents had it, it's more likely to affect you, and it's passed down from generation to generation. Mm-hmm. And it's not really through one event, it's multiple events, but really how you learn to deal with things. And so there's not as many different ways as there are to become depressed. There are that many different ways to come out of it too. So there's no way to really pinpoint it, but it's the most critical disease there is out there right now. Mm-hmm. It's number one. And he said that antidepressants work in some people and they don't work in other people, but they're not the way out. You have to be able to learn how to cope with things appropriately.
Okay. So the depression is affect our many part of our life, right? It will affect lifetime. It's not only it's very tough, and also he said that the treatment is because the way in and the way out is unique to that specific person, right? So and there are a lot of risk factor involved. And also he said that it's a biological, psychological, and also social network. Those things it's really impact. And he said that nowadays the strongest evidence show that the technology the technology is the strongest evidence so that will make the people depressed so much, because the more time we spend on the screen, the more depression we get. And also that it's not easy way to deal with this thing, and there is no treatment for the depression. There no specific no treatment for all people. So everyone have a different way of treatment. So but this is the way the Western psychology goes. But when we come to the Buddhist psychology view, and we will learn into that later on, I will show you the way that we can use Buddhist psychology plus the meditation will help us to recover from the depression more effectively. But we also we say that the Western psychology also is good. So we will integrate the two together and we will see it. So next week, what I'm going to do is I will show you the summary of the video that we just watched, and we continue watch that next week to complete the whole video, and I will give you the full the detailed summary of the video, and to see how the Western psychology, based on his experience, that he provides certain way to help to for the depression. And when we're done with this, and we will spend more time into, I will show you the Buddhist psychology model, and also maybe some kind of meditation technique that help us to reduce the depression in the great way. So this is important. Because the depression is number one right now in the world. And you know what? It will lead us to commit suicide. A lot of people commit suicide due to the depression. That's very crazy. And a lot of time it's maybe they come from the depressed parent, right? And well, if we live with we are the child of the depressed parent, and we will have 3 times or 6 times to become the depression compared to the one who live under the parent with no depression. So, and that's why if the people who already at a young age, they already depressed, and later on when they get married, they become parents, and their children will also become depressed. That's why the number keep increasing. It's not decreasing. From 2004, the depression rate ranked number 4, but right now it become 1. And that is very, very scary, right? Very dangerous and very scary. We have to be very aware of, we have to be wise. Learn about the depression is, when we understand about the depression, and let's say we recognize other people's depression. This, if we don't understand them, how do we have the loving kindness and compassion? Tell me, can we have a loving kindness and compassion if we do not understand them?
No, because if you've not experienced it and you don't understand it, then you won't have compassion for them. You'll just be like, get over it. What's wrong with you? You won't be able to have empathy towards them.
Yeah, that's right. That's why in order to learn this thing, so we try to understand the depressed people. When we understand the depressed people, we will have the sympathy, right? And we will have a loving kindness, and we will learn to help them. This is where we generate the blessing and the virtue. Okay. And dealing with this thing is not easy. And sometimes it's, but it's good. When we learn this, we will be able to know it, and we know how to deal with it. So we will continue on this thing next week. All right. Let we conclude the class today. Give me 1 second. Not this one. What happened? Okay. Okay. Maybe go ahead.
May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace, with heart of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may their minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward, may all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise.
That's good. What? How the subject today? Anyone? How the subject today? Tina and Bewin, what do you think?
It was informational.
Yeah, very informational, right? And later on, you will learn about the technique. Kwa and Aaron, what do you think?
I think it's actually really good to talk about because a lot of times depression gets misinterpreted as like something that you can control or fix right away, and like a lot of people don't understand that it's a disease that people have or are born with.
Okay.
Yeah, like what he said. I think it's something important to talk about as well to learn about, and yeah.
Mhm. If we don't know about this thing, and we don't even know that we are in the depression, and that's very dangerous, we will become worse. Vincent and Ivan, what do you think? Vincent?
Yeah. Hello.
Okay, so what do you think about today's topic?
I think it was interesting. I mean, I have like one friend that's depressed, so I got to learn a little more about it.
Okay, that's a good thing. So once you understand it, and and you understand the technique, and we will learn more into it. Tammy, what do you think about today's topic?
I thought it was very depressing.
What?
I thought it was a very depressing topic.
Very
No, it's good. It's very good to talk about for sure, especially in times like today with COVID and everything. There's
Yeah.
only going to be more and more depression amongst everyone, and more people tied into technology than
Yeah.
ever before. So it's very good to talk about this.
Yeah, because nowadays we are in the pandemic, COVID, right? We also, a lot of people will be have no job that relate to the economy. So that is where the people will into the depression a lot. So this is good to learn. So so we know how to help other people. All right. Thank you, everyone. I hope I see you next week. Yeah, no more you go. Thank you, everyone.
Nam mô Phật
Thank you.
Thầy.
Aaron. Oh, he ran away so fast. Okay, I know.